Hey, guitar playing champions. If you want to build your guitar speed and make that speed feel easy, you've got to get your hands into perfect synchronization. When you learn to do that, your speed increases naturally and isn't difficult. You don't need to practice hours and hours every day. You don't need natural talent, and you don't need above average DNA or special genetics. What you do need is the technique to get your hands in sync. Once you do that, the speed develops on its own. Hi, I'm Tom Hess, and when I first learned how to play guitar, I was slow and sloppy. Building speed was really hard for me. I was taking lessons at the time, but I only made tiny improvements to my guitar technique and speed. Then I started lessons with a new teacher, and he told me that I had the wrong approach to developing my speed. He said, stop practicing guitar to build speed. Instead, you need to understand the law of cause and effect, and speed is a result. It's the effect of something else. There are several causes of guitar speed, but you must first learn two-hand synchronization, because without this, nothing else matters. Now, since that time, I've taught these same guitar speed building techniques to thousands of my online guitar students over the last 3 decades. And today, it's your turn. So grab your guitar, let's go. As I just mentioned, I've taught guitar to thousands of people over the years. And one of the very, very common problems that I see constantly with people around the world is that their fretting hand is out of sync with their picking hand. And what causes that to happen, one of the core causes, is that they're not matching or linking up one action in the fretting hand with one action in the picking hand. So a common problem occurs, for example, after you play a note with your index finger. Let's say I'm going to play these 3 notes here. After I play the first note with this finger, very often students will leave this finger down. They won't pick it up after playing it, so they'll do this. These 2 fingers are still down, and they don't pick up those fingers. And then what happens is, when they've got to now go to the next string, higher or lower, like this, their first finger, and sometimes their middle finger, is still stuck in the down position on the previous string, on this string here. And now they think, oh, we've got to move to the next string. So then they start picking up their fingers to move over. It's too late. Game over. You already lost. That's going to be way too slow to do that. And not only is it slower, it's much harder. So developing the speed that way, although it's possible, it requires so much more effort, energy, time, practice, and work. And if you want things to go faster, we need a better way so that we don't have to use brute force in order to build the speed. We want to use efficiency and economy of motion and get the hands synchronized. Okay? So what happens is when I explain this, very often I'll hear back and they'll say, well, this feels natural for me to do. It feels natural for me to leave my fingers down. And when I tell them to pick up their fingers like this, see, right when I played that note, this note popped up. It got off of the string. Same thing from here to here. When I play this, that finger's going to pop up. Okay? And when I explain that to students, they say, well, hey, but this feels easier. It feels more natural for my fretting hand to do this. Well, I'm sure it does feel natural for them, for their fretting hand. The problem is what they experience as feeling natural for this hand creates a very unnatural feeling when trying to sync both hands. And that's the problem. So just because something feels easier like this, that might feel easier for this hand, but our goal is not to make things easier for this hand. Our goal is to synchronize the hand so that everything is easier. Because otherwise, this hand gets used to being lazy, and then it's supposed to try and keep up with the pick as the pick moves to the next string, and very often the left hand can't keep up. Or it can keep up, but the motion in their brain to get the signal from their brain to get this hand to move when this hand moves is out of sync. Okay? So what we want to do is instead we want to start training our index finger to move off the string when it's not playing. The same thing is true with the middle fingers or any other finger. Okay? So don't do this. No matter how natural it feels or how easy it feels for this hand, remember, synchronization is the key to building your guitar speed, not making things lazy and simple for that hand. Now, I'm going to repeat a point that I just made because it's critical. It's super crucial, and people miss it even after they hear it. Although it seems easier to leave the fingers down, it's going to create a very unnatural feeling when you're trying to synchronize the two hands, especially as you start going faster. So just because the fretting hand feels more natural to be lazy, it's not what's going to get you the speed that you're looking for. And it makes it more likely that you're going to cause mistakes or play a mistake or have sloppy playing when you move from one string to the next string. The chance of errors goes up because of the effort required now to move quickly instead of moving leisurely to the next string. So to fix this, we want to pick up the index finger of your fretting hand. There's no reason for it to be down there unless you're immediately going to come right back to it. So if we did something like this, even there, I'm coming right back to it. Okay? And you might say, well, why don't we just leave this finger down because we're going to come right back to that finger. Okay, I suppose you could. But even if I was doing that, I would pick up the index finger anyway, even though picking it up might be unnecessary in this particular case. But I want my fingers to be trained to come off the notes. Here's what we're trying to do, guys. We're trying to link one action in this hand to one action in this hand. Okay? So you've got an act of coming down, then an act of that comes down, that's when you pick, and that comes up at the same time. So these fingers transfer like this, and it happens at the same time that we're picking. Okay, so we have three events. That finger comes up, that finger comes down, and the string is picked all at the same time. If you do that, even when you're staying on one string, guess what's going to happen when you change strings? It's going to feel easy. It's going to feel natural. Why is it going to feel easy and natural? Because you do it all the time, even on the same string. Okay, so it's not going to feel any harder for the fretting hand to change strings as it does for the fretting hand to stay on the same string. So that's a key point. For the fretting hand, it shouldn't really feel any more difficult to go from one string to another as it should to be on the same string. Now, for the picking hand, it will get more difficult. It's always more difficult to change strings than to stay on the same string. That's always going to be the case unless you're sweep picking, then it's actually easier to change strings. But if you're not sweep picking, for the picking hand, it'll be harder. But for the fretting hand, there should be no difference, really, no detectable difference between same string or different string. I mean, there is a teeny tiny little minute difference, but it should be almost imperceptible. If you perceive a big difference, it's primarily because you might be leaving the fingers down. You're not picking them up immediately when the next finger is playing. So all of this is going to train your brain to send simultaneous signals from your brain, down your neck, down your shoulders, down your arms to each hand. And when you get that sync, everything becomes easier. Speed becomes easier, accuracy becomes easier, and it feels easier. If we don't have that occurring, then we've got to use brute force and so much extra effort to get the speed out of a technique that isn't very effective, it isn't very efficient. It can be done, but it's really hard and requires much more practice. I don't know about you, but I'm busy. Are you busy? Do you got 8 hours a day to practice? I don't got that kind of time. I don't have 4 hours. I don't even have 2 hours on most days. I want to get this done in like 45 minutes and be done. How about you? Okay, so if that's what you want, then we got to have a superior technique. Before we go further, I've got another video you should check out on YouTube. It's called Guitar Speed Lesson Do this to synchronize your two hands. And in that video, I'm going to talk about some other things that's different than what I'm talking about here. Because right now, I just want to talk to you about the transfer of fingers as we go from string to string or from finger to finger. But in that other video, I talk about some other things that you're going to want to know to help you to synchronize fully the two hands. All right, now we need to talk about this hand, the picking hand. Now, very often, what happens is when guitar players are playing and they're picking, and they're going to do like a sweep picking motion. Let's say they do a downstroke here, and then a downstroke when they change strings here. So you have like a little sweep picking motion. Or if you're doing directional picking, then it would be down, if that was a downstroke there. And then the new note, the first note of the next string, would automatically be down no matter what you did before. Anytime you go from string 4 to string 3, the first note played on string 3 will always be a downstroke no matter what you just did on string 4. That is true 100% of the time when using directional picking. Okay, that's different than alternate picking, obviously, and it's very different from economy picking because economy picking would require, by definition, that both the last note on string 4 and the first note on string 3 are downstrokes. You cannot have an upstroke on string 4 and a downstroke on string 3 and be doing economy picking. That would violate the law of economy picking. Okay, its definition. But in directional picking, you can do that, and that's the picking technique that I recommend everyone to use. Anyway, the point is this, that what happens is when people do sweep picking or when they're changing strings like this, let's say we play those 4 notes, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, those 4 notes. I'm starting with a downstroke, then an upstroke, then a downstroke, and then the next string would be a downstroke. And where people get this wrong is they let the momentum of the pick completely stop as they move from string 4 to string 3. And that throws off not only the speed of the picking, but it throws off the synchronization of the two hands. So you don't want to break the momentum of the picking hand. Okay, that's a crucial thing here, okay, to develop the two-hand synchronization and the speed, and to make the speed easier for you, okay? So let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's what many people do, which makes it harder, okay? They'll go, watch this hand. They'll go down, then up, then down. Okay, everything's good so far, except that we just made a mistake. We stopped. Watch. Down, up, down, stop. Then they go to the next string and then start the motion again in the picking hand and do down. So if I take my left hand out of it, just watch this. Here's what's happening. Down, up, down, stop, down again. So they do down and they're pausing and then down again. We don't want that to happen. And the reason why it happens among many guitar players is they think, well, if I do this, if I go down, down, like a sweep pick, my pick will arrive at the G string too early. It will be, now my playing will be out of time. So the pick has to stop. Otherwise, the timing will be all off and the synchronization will be off because the pick gets to the next string before it should and before the fretting hand gets there. Well, their thinking is half right and half wrong. The part they get right is recognizing correctly, they are correct, that we don't want the pick to arrive at the next string too early because then the playing is out of time and very likely this hand won't be able to keep up anyway, okay, because it will be so fast. But where they get wrong is the solution. They think that the solution to the problem that they have correctly identified is to stop the momentum and then restart it, okay? No, that is not the best solution. It is a solution, but it's the worst of all possible solutions, okay? What we want to do is have the pick in the hand continue moving. It will never stop momentum, but it just slows down. It never stops, okay? So we want the momentum. If I play from here to here, we want the pick to continue, just to continue moving in that direction, never stop, momentum continues, but we just need to slow it down, okay? So we're going to accelerate as we initiate the motion here, right? You have to accelerate your hand that way. But then as soon as that pick slices through the string, we have to back off of the speed, okay? So we're going to slow down. The energy will be dissipated, but we're still going to keep moving our hand. And then we pick the next note in time and in sync with this hand. So when I play those 4 notes I showed you, it'll be like this. Down, up, down, continue but slower, and then you hit down, okay? So watch this again. Down, up, down, stay in motion, and then I just goofed it up. But you get the idea. You stay in motion. Okay, so it's never going to be that. It's not going to be down, stop, start again, down. It's going to be down, continues until it falls onto the next string in time. And for that to happen, we need to slow the pick down, slow our picking hand down, but never stop. Because if it stops, then you've got to recreate or reaccelerate all the momentum, and that's going to make it very hard to get that timing just perfect so the hands are synchronized. It's not impossible to do it that way, but it's going to require enormous amounts of unnecessary additional hundreds, if not thousands of practice hours to get the sync and the speed up. Let's eliminate that crap. We don't want that, right? You don't want that extra stuff, right? So let's make it easier, as easy as we can. Okay? So I'm not sure how close you can see my hand still moving when it's going at slow speed. I'll try and play this really slow. So my hand's still moving, still moving, still moving. And then we hit the next string. So here it is. Down, still moving, still moving, still moving, still moving, down. Okay? So when you practice this, practice it that slow. And what you do is just watch this hand, stare at it, down, keep moving the hand. You're just in very slow motion, and then you hit it. And you want to train your brain to keep that pick moving. We don't want to stop, okay? We also don't want to do this and go too quickly to the next string. So don't go too fast. Don't sweep through it with that kind of speed, right? Because then our rhythm is off, the timing is off, and the synchronization will probably be off as you increase the speed and go really fast, right? So we actually need to slow your pick hand down in order to increase its speed. That sounds a little weird, right? But think about it. We don't need your picking hand to do this motion. We don't need your picking hand to play with more speed. When we change strings with 2 downstrokes in a row or 2 upstrokes in a row, we actually need to slow it down. Slow the hand down, but never stop. So if you're struggling with the speed, either the pick is stopping, and now it's game over. It's going to be impossible to play real fast doing that. Or you've got the opposite problem. You're not slowing down, and you're going too fast, and the pick is arriving too early, and that's causing the 2 hands to be out of sync because of that reason. Right? So it's just a matter of timing. It's just a matter of timing. If you want to get this perfect, okay, and you want to increase the speed potential that you have, you've got to be willing to go through this kind of slow and tedious process for a little while, okay, until you get it. Now, here's how I advise my students to practice this. I always tell them, listen, don't put your entire guitar playing on hold to correct the habit you have and then replace it with the new habit I'm telling you. Because you're not a robot, you're not a machine, and it would be pretty boring if all you ever did for the next 2 months or however long it's going to take was not played anything on guitar and only worked on this. I mean, that would just drive you nuts. It would drive me nuts. I don't know how you are, but it drives me nuts. I don't have that kind of patience. So, and most people don't. So I'll say this, okay? Take the first 10 or 15 minutes of your practice time, your warm-up, let's say, and do this. Okay, work on the timing, the synchronization of the two hands. Then, after that 10 or 15 minutes, go off and play guitar the way you normally do. Okay, don't, just continue, play the way you normally do. I know it won't be the way I showed you. You'll go back to your old habits. That's okay for now. We're not looking to correct this issue instantly. Just 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. That's it. You're done. Then go off and play your own stuff, play your songs, improvise, jam with your friends, do whatever you're doing. And then tomorrow, come back 5, 10, 15 minutes and work on it. And that's it. And then go practice the other things. Go play the things you normally would. That's how I'm suggesting you to break through this speed barrier by getting the hands in sync and how to practice it. All right. I've got another video on YouTube you should check out relating to what we just talked about, specifically with the right hand, and making sure that your brain is sending the right signals to the right hand. And the video is called Increase Your Guitar Speed Without Moving Your Hands Faster. It's a pretty popular video. It's got almost 2 million views on it. You might want to go check that one out. It's very, very useful. So today I gave you 2 secrets to build guitar speed and get your hands in sync. The first was picking up your fingers in your fretting hand. The second was to keep the momentum going in your picking hand. Now, if you want to learn the other secrets here, if you want to learn how to double your guitar speed while actually reducing your practice time, cutting it in half, I'll show you how in my free guide titled Double Your Guitar Speed while cutting your practice time in half. It's totally free. There's no strings attached. Click on the link below and download your copy so that you can increase your guitar speed now.